Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Your Number One Fan podcast. I'm your host, Kim Spencer, your number one fan. Episode topics will vary with the ultimate goal of providing the inspiration, encouragement, and tools for you to create your most authentic, happy life. I want this to be your weekly comfort podcast that also gives you a little kick in the butt to live your life to the fullest and not care what anybody says. Thank you for being here. Now let's get into the good stuff. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Your Number One Fan podcast. Today, I have another Clubhouse friend, Audrey Geyer, and we're super excited to chat. She has a lot of expertise in women's cycles and menstrual cycles and stuff like that I feel like nobody knows about or understands. So I will just let you take it away and introduce yourself and kind of give a groundwork of what you'd like to talk about today.
Thanks, Kim. I'm so excited to chat with you about this. Yeah, I can't believe that we connected like 3 years ago on Clubhouse, and here we are now. Um, as you said, my name is Audrey Geyer. I am a fertility awareness educator, which is someone who has been formally trained, has done exams and supervised practicum, and all the things that you need to do in order to learn how to teach a clinically recognized fertility awareness method, which can be used as a means of naturally and effectively preventing pregnancy. It can help couples conceive by understanding the time that the female partner or a woman is actually fertile. And it can also be used as a way of understanding your own hormonal health. And in addition to that, I'm a women's health coach, and I specifically serve high achieving women who want to really be in optimal health so that they can enjoy their careers and their families and all the things that they are so passionate about and actually have the energy and wellness to do that even when they have a lot on their plates.
Yeah, so all of this obviously aligns so well with the podcast purpose is we just want to be our best selves and be able to create our best life. And I think even if women are trying really hard, they can be missing this piece and not even realize it. So I'm excited to get into this, and I feel like we can touch on a lot of different things. So first and foremost, I would like to talk about just the menstrual cycle, kind of a breakdown of the cycle and just the basics, or as much as you think makes sense to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. So the menstrual cycle is roughly somewhere between about 25 and 36 days, though that may vary for a lot of women, especially if they have hormonal imbalances, if they're in a postpartum stage of life. There can definitely be variation to this. But when we talk about the menstrual cycle, first of all, we're not just talking about the week of your period, we're talking about everything that happens from one period until the next. So, starting with the bleed or your period, this is a point where the menstrual cycle is starting and where your sex hormones are low, which I always like to mention and I think is kind of a little bit funny to think about because of the kind of stereotypical and stigmatized language we have around the menstrual cycle. Most women have heard the expression, oh, she's so hormonal, she must be on her period. And it's always used in this very negative context where hormonal is supposed to mean irrational, dramatic, moody, whatever it is. And the irony of this is that when you're on your period, you're not so hormonal. You're the least hormonal you will be all cycle long. So during this time, you're shedding the lining of the uterus. You are bleeding for typically about 3 to 7 days. And then after that, what's happening is because your sex hormones are so low, your hypothalamus, which is a part of your brain, reads these serum levels in your body, says they're low, it's time to make some more. And so your hypothalamus produces a hormone called gonadotropin releasing hormone, or a GnRH, and that communicates with your pituitary gland, which is another part of your brain. And then the pituitary gland says, okay, it's time to start communicating with the ovaries. I'm going to release a hormone called follicle stimulating hormone, or FSH. Follicle stimulating hormone is a little bit of a self named hormone. It kind of tells you what it does in the name. It stimulates the follicles in your ovaries. So, day by day during this part of your cycle, which is called the follicular phase, those follicles are stimulated every day and they begin to produce estrogen. Estrogen begins to rise, and usually around this time, women will start noticing a change in their energy, a change in their mood. Maybe they notice their energy picking up, especially if they tend to be more lethargic during their period. Maybe they notice they start feeling a little bit more social, a little bit more quote unquote normal, even though it's all normal and we don't feel the same every week. And there can also be changes in biomarkers such as cervical fluid, and different things like that. As estrogen reaches its peak levels, so does testosterone. They're a bit of a dynamic duo. And as they climb and as they reach that peak, that sends a signal back to the pituitary gland, and another hormone is released called luteinizing hormone or LH. And the purpose of LH is really to cause the dominant follicle in that cycle to mature so that it can rupture. A lot of women may be familiar with LH if they've ever used LH strips, or sometimes called ovulation tests or ovulation predictor kits, which is a little bit of a misnomer because even on that day that you get a positive luteinizing hormone test strip, it doesn't necessarily mean you are currently ovulating or guarantee that you will ovulate. What it's saying is that your body is trying to. Okay, so it's producing that that's going to mature and hopefully rupture the follicle. Then ovulation takes place, which is the main event of the menstrual cycle. I think the menstrual cycle would probably be better named the ovulation cycle because everything is contingent upon this one event. Ovulation itself lasts between 12 and 24 hours, so it's a very short amount of time, although because of cervical mucus changes in the body being able to keep sperm alive, you can certainly conceive if you've had sex for up to about 5 days beforehand. Um, and then once ovulation takes place, the follicle that ruptured is recycled by the body and turned into its own temporary endocrine gland that we make every single cycle called the corpus luteum. And the corpus luteum produces progesterone. We notice a change, typically a drying up in cervical mucus. Some women may notice that in the days around ovulation, they noticed quite a lot, and now they're no longer noticing much at all. They may notice themselves start to become maybe a little bit more lethargic sometimes, maybe a little bit more introverted. Some women experience irritability or challenges with PMS. And then, about over the next 10 to 18 days, they're in this part of the cycle, which is known as the luteal phase. And then at the end of the luteal phase, progesterone lowers, and that causes menstruation to begin again, and the cycle starts over.
Wow.
Yeah, I just threw a lot at you.
No, that you are so good at presenting that information too. Like I was able to follow along with where I am in the cycle. I feel like the biggest question a lot of people have is like, what's normal? Because I keep seeing, I don't know if it's like just a trendy thing that's like people are interested about now. I mean, or maybe I'm just paying attention to it more. People are saying like, if you have pain during your period or if you're bleeding a certain amount, like that's not normal. So, and kind of on the same note, what is your thought about birth control? Because I think a lot of people are waking up to that as well, like how long a lot of us have been on birth control and the effect of it. And yeah, so what is your experience with all of that?
Yeah, so let's start with your first question about what is normal. And I think this is the part of my job that I really love the most because I teach women how to collect standardized and clinically recognized data on their own cycles. And this is such a powerful tool because it really makes women really active and informed participant in their own healthcare. And the truth is, we haven't gotten a lot of education as a whole. It hasn't really been normalized yet what is or isn't normal. We're used to being told, oh, PMS and painful periods essentially our price to pay for being a woman. And it's normal to feel that way. Or as long as you have a bleed every month, that means that you have a normal and regular cycle. And I just want to say that this is not true. When I am working with a woman and helping her look at her cycle, we are spending several months, several cycles collecting data together every single day. And it takes only just a few minutes to actually do that. But once we have several cycles in, we start looking at every single part of her cycle to assess whether or not it's healthy and normal. I am looking at everything from, does her period actually last 3 to 7 days? Is it shorter than that? Is it longer than that? We're looking at the quantity of her bleeding. It is normal to bleed between 40 to 80 milliliters in a cycle or in during the period. So if someone is bleeding less than that or more than that, that can indicate a hormonal imbalance or sometimes another condition that is happening that we're looking at. Certainly, considering pain, it is not normal to have pain that would disrupt your daily activities. And there can be so many different causes for what that pain is, but we're looking at getting that information so that we can hopefully get her great medical treatment, get her proper diagnosis, and get her optimally healthy so that she doesn't feel like she's losing days out of her life being in pain or having to stay by the toilet. Or, some women even have, some women are even getting to the point of throwing up or needing to lay down for a long time. Then we're also looking at, is she approaching ovulation in a way that is showing healthy and normal biomarkers? Is the event of ovulation regular and clear? Are we seeing a clear fertile window pattern? If there is, sometimes there are women that show one that is either too short, or some women show signs of delayed ovulation. That's really common, especially for women who have PCOS, as well as women who have relative energy deficiency syndrome. Maybe they're athletes, maybe they've struggled with disordered eating. That can be common, or maybe they're really, really stressed. And then we're also looking at, do they have a healthy and steady luteal phase? There are a lot of women who think that they have regular cycles, maybe even they have an average cycle length of about 28 days, but they may still have a luteal phase defect. And until we start charting, they may not know it. And that can contribute to problems with fertility. It could be caused by thyroid disease, by vitamin D deficiency, by things that really affect our overall health. And a lot of my clients, whether or not they're currently trying to get pregnant, still want to know about this, and because it affects them on a larger scale. So I'm really assessing their cycles overall, as well as teaching them how to do it on their own, and then how to connect with a medical provider who will actually listen and who knows how to read these charts and take them into consideration.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's really key is it takes time to collect the data, and I think a lot of people don't. And I think there's a little bit of a fear now to even use the app trackers. I know that I don't do it because you hear about your information being sent wherever. Like, so do you do the temperature thing? I guess is what I was going to ask. Like, how do you measure the period?
Yeah, so I love basal body temperature. I will say it's not enough on its own. To me, I see it as an additional biomarker. It's a useful measure because what basal body temperature is really telling you is there is a sustained rise after ovulation due to the hormone progesterone that we talked about that rises in the luteal phase. That increases your core resting body temperature. It increases your thermogenesis. So if you take basal body temperature throughout your cycle, and there are some simple calculation rules that show when you've had a sufficient rise. However, it doesn't actually tell you when you ovulate, when you're fertile. It doesn't really tell you anything pre ovulatory or ovulatory. So I like to have more than one biomarker that we're working with there. Um, and there are a couple layers to this. One is that we are looking for a clear signs of ovulation and confirmation that ovulation has happened.